Alright, so we created a very simple HTML page. If we go to our folder and we visit the page in the browser, we can see we just have some headings, paragraph, links, and an image. What I want to do now is add some styling, because up until this point we have no styling whatsoever. And I'm going to create a new folder called C1S4. And I'm actually going to copy both of these and paste them in that folder. Okay, I'll close that. I'll open the new one. Okay. Alright, so I want to show you a couple different things. I'm going to open up the index.html with Notepad++, and there's a couple different ways we can add styling. The first way I'm going to show you is not recommended. It's known as bad practice now. It was used back in the 90s or maybe the early 2000s, and that was inline styling using HTML. And let me show you an example of that. For the body, let's say we want to change the background color to the body. What we could do is we could give it an attribute called BG color. And this is an attribute. This isn't a CSS style. So we can say red. Alright, so if we save that and reload, we do have a red background, but this is inline. We don't want this. We want to keep our markup clear and just for presentation, not for styling. That's what CSS is for. And what we could do is we could do some CSS styling and have that inline as well. And we do that with the style attribute. So we can say style, and we can say background color. We'll say blue. Reload, and now the color's blue. So this is better than what we just did because we are using CSS. But again, this is inline and it just doesn't look very clean. So another thing I'm going to show you is how we can just add the style itself into our head area. So we can create a style tag and close that tag off, and we can take this background color blue, copy that or cut it and get rid of the style attribute, leaving our body tag untouched and nice and clean. And we can add that right here, but we actually need to specify what we want to add this color to, or background color to, and it's the body. So we can say body and paste that right in there. And I'll change the color just so you can see. We'll say green. Okay, so let's reload, and now the background's green. So this is better than the way that I just showed you in the body tag. Now this still isn't the very best way to do this. The recommended way to do this is to just include a style sheet and then put the styles in there. And the way we do that is we use the link tag with the rel attribute that's equal to style sheet, and we want href, which is going to equal, it's going to equal our style sheet. So I'll say style.css, and then finally we want a type attribute that goes to text/css, and then we can just close that off with a forward slash and a greater than sign. All right, so let's actually just get this here. We don't want the tags, the style tags. We just want that. Get rid of the style tags. And doesn't that look a whole lot cleaner just having this one inclusion of the style sheet? So if we save that and we reload, it's going to go back to white because we have no styling yet. We don't even have the sheet. Now we want it to be called style.css. Now we could put it here. Actually, I will put it here for now. We want a new document called style.css, and we can open that with Notepad++, and we can paste in our body code, our body styling, and let's change it back to red. Okay, so if we save that, now the body's red because we're in the style.css file, which is included in our HTML file right here. All right. Now, this is the best way to do this, but I usually would suggest not to have all of these in the same folder. I usually create a CSS folder and an images folder. So let's do that. CSS and images. So now we can move the style.css into the CSS folder, the sample image into the images folder. Now if we go back and reload, we're going to have some problems. First of all, our styling is gone. Second, the image is not showing. And the reason for that is that we move the files. So if we need to go back to our index page, okay, so we'll go back to our index page. Now here it's saying to point to style.css in the same directory, but we moved it, so we want to say CSS folder, whoops, and then a /. Now it says that it's in the folder CSS. Same thing down here. Instead of just having src equals sample image, we want to put images because that's where it is now. So if you save that and reload, and we have everything back. And I'm just gonna get that background color. We'll just now with the background color property, we can just type the color. But if we want to be more specific, we can type in hexadecimal values, which start with a hashtag. For instance, this value here is for light gray, so I can save that. And now we have a light gray background. So what I want to do now is add some CSS. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is we'll keep the background color gray of the body. Alright, now we want to choose a font. So we need to say font family, and I want an Arial font. By default, I believe it used the Times Newman, or the New Time font. But if we save this, we should see when we reload, our font's changed to Arial, and this is the body, so it's pertaining to every single thing in this body, in between the body tags. So, and the next thing I want to do is add a font size. Font size of 14 pixels. What is going on here? Okay, so font size is 14 pixels, and this will not pertain to the headings or anything here for that matter. If we don't have a paragraph or a heading or whatever, the font size will be 14. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is show you, I could take, let's say, the H1 tag. Sorry, I keep clicking out of the virtual machine. We can do H1, and we can change the color to red. If we save that, you can see both of our H1 tags are now red. Now, what if we don't want this? What if we only want this tag, this H1 to be red? Then we have to use either an ID or a class. And in this case, we should use a class. So if we go to our welcome everyone, H1, we're going to say H1 class. We're going to add the class attribute equals, and we'll say red. Or actually, we'll say red class. So if we do that, reload, nothing changes. What we need to do is go to our style sheet, and we don't want all the H1s red. We just want the ones that have red class. So we need to do H1 dot red class, and then this will only pertain to H1 tags that have the red class. So if I reload, now this is back to black, and the main heading is red. Now I'd like to add a container, or sometimes called a wrap, and that's just basically the outer edge of the website. This particular page is just sitting on the left hand side of the browser. What I want to do is put it in the middle and give it a width. So to do that, we need to add a div, and the div is going to go after the body but before everything else, and this is going to be an ID. Now the difference between an ID and a class varies for some people, but what it is supposed to be is a class you can use more than once, or you should be able to use more than once. Like this class here, this red class, I should be able to use this on any H1 tag, so I'll have multiple red classes. An ID will pertain to only one element, so this is going to be the container element, and I'm not going to use the ID of container anywhere else. It's just going to be for this div tag, and that's going to end down here because it's going to actually wrap around everything. So I'm going to save that, and there'll be no difference yet because we haven't styled the container div. I'm going to do that now, and since it's an ID, we need to use a hashtag container. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is give it a width, and I'm going to give it a width of 460 pixels, which is quite small, quite thin for a website. Most sites are around 960, but we don't have much content, so I'm going to make it a little skinnier. And we can save that, and we shouldn't really see anything. Yeah, nothing really happened. If we use our web developer tools in Chrome, you can press F12, and if we click on the elements area, we can actually click this magnifying glass and inspect each of these. If we'll inspect this here, you can see it's H1 with the class of red class, and then we can actually see the CSS on this side. So if we click on the paragraph, we have a paragraph. This is actually styling that the browser has put on the paragraph tag. We didn't add this CSS, the browser did. If we click on container, you can see we have a width of 460, and if we hover over it, the blue area is the container. Alright, so it's that wide. Now what I'd like to do is I want the container to be moved into the middle of the page like a normal website. So how we do that is we use margin. I'm going to say margin auto, and what that's going to do is make every margin, top, left, right, bottom, all the same, so that the container is in the middle. So if we reload, you can see now the container div is in the middle, and you can see it reaches from the side to side, the right to the left of the blue area. That's the container. And we can, in order to see the edges of the container without having to do this, we can add a border. So we can say border 1 pixel. Now this takes 3 arguments. We want the pixel of the border, the style, which would be solid, dashed, dotted. We're going to use solid, and then finally the color, which I'm going to use a light gray, which is CCC, C 6 times. So if we save that, go back, I'm going to close this developer tools, reload. Now you can see we have a border. Now I don't like how the edges are touching like this, and we can fix that with padding. So let's go and add a padding, and we're going to say 20 pixels, which would be 20 pixels on every side. A padding is just the space from the edge to the inner part of the div. So if I reload, so I didn't save that. Oh, I forgot a semicolon. So if I save that and reload, you can see now we have a padding of 20 pixels, which is from here to here. Same thing with the top. Alright, so we're getting there. Next, you can see we have these straight corners, these sharp corners. I want to round those out. And like I said in an earlier section, we used to have to use background images to do that. But now we can use CSS3. We can use the border radius property, and we can add the radius, which will say 10 pixels. Now if we reload, now you can see we have a little roundness to it. I also don't like the text being lined this way, especially with how these headings are. I want them to be centered. So let's give this a text align property of center. And if we reload, now everything's in the center. Alright. Now you can see we have a bit of too much padding up here on the top, but we do have 20 pixels on the right, left, and bottom, which look good. But the top looks like there's too much because the heading also has top padding. So we can actually take this padding and we can say 0, 20 pixels, 20 pixels, 20 pixels. Now what this is that we're giving padding values to the top. The top comes first, top, right, bottom, left. So just remember that order, top, right, bottom, left. So if we save this and reload, now you can see the top shrunk. It has no padding, but the H1 tag does. Because if I open my tools and we inspect this element, the H1, you can see where the orange is its padding. And we can see that, I'm sorry, it's not padding, it's margin, which is very similar. So it has this margin before, which is 0.67 EMs. So it has its own spacing at the top, so that's why we don't need the padding at the top for the container. Okay, now we can change the background of this inner container. If you remember, the body is light gray, so we can make the container. And here's another trick. You can see up here we have background color. We can actually just use background and do the same thing. If we save that, now it has a white background. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is I want to give this image a border. So how we do this is we only have one image in this page, so we don't need to add a class or an ID to grab this element, this image. So all we need to do is just do img, which is just any image that's on the page. And what I want to do is add some padding. First I'll add a border. So we say border, we'll give it a dark gray border, which will be 1 pixel, which will be solid. Save that, and if you look closely at the image, you can see now it has a border. Now I want to add just a little padding to bring the image away from the border. So let's do that. We'll say padding 4 pixels. And remember, if you only have one value for padding, that means it pertains to every side. So if we reload, now you can see we have this nice border and some padding. So it's starting to look good. Obviously this isn't a won't be a working web page that will be of any use. It's just for example. So that's basically it for applying simple CSS. we'll be getting into, let's see, what will we be doing next? Next we'll be getting into tables, HTML tables and lists.